New Jersey is in trouble, and everybody seems to know it except for the political class. I'm Philip Rizzo, the host of Jersey Rising podcast and the point man for the new PAC, Jersey Rising, making sure that the rising voices of New Jerseyans are being heard. Here's an update on the PAC. Again, thank you to our members. Also, we mentioned the coffee mugs were ordered. The coffee mugs are now in. Drinking water, not coffee, but still, that's the Patriot member mug. We also have our founding member mugs. They're in. They're going to be shipped out this week. We're going to put our volunteers together to get those out to you this week. Hopefully, have them for the weekend. First podcast, we mentioned our candidates. We mentioned Chris Barranco, our assembly candidate, Rob Arrace, our mayor candidate, Dave Herrera for town council, and then we had 3 Board of Ed members. We had Eli Moalem, Christy O'Connor, and then also Ryan Cody. We have added a 4th Board of Ed member. It is Gabriel Holler, and he is running in Edison. He is a husband, he's a father, he's a man of faith, and a great patriot. And so we are moving right along with the fundraising. Thank you so much for those of you that have given either one time or also have signed up for the monthly giving, either $5 a month as a founding member or $17.76 for a Patriot member. And so we are going to do what I got some good responses on as one of our points of the podcast, the Nerd Alert.
Nerd Alert!
The social media troll of the week. This one goes out to Jeff Tiedrick. Tiedrick. Jeff Tiedrick on Twitter. Again, at It's Jeff Tiedrick. He put out on the 18th of this month, quote, Colin Powell didn't die because he was vaccinated. He died because you weren't. Man, that is rich. That is pushing fear. That is pushing a narrative. That is snowflake material if I have ever seen it. I've never met Colin Powell. I've never been in his presence. I don't know if I've ever been in the same state with him at the same time. Yet, because I have chosen for myself not to get the vaccine, Jeff Tiedrick has decided that Colin Powell is dead because of me. Not cancer, not because of the vaccine and maybe some of the side effects. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but because of me, somebody that Colin Powell's never come in contact with. And so it's funny, Jeff is from Rockaway, New Jersey. So on Jersey Rising, we're not being specific to the trolls, the social media trolls, but he happens to be from Rockaway. He went to Morris Hills High School. I grew up just behind Morris Hills High School on Andrea Drive. That's my Aunt Andrea. My family had developed that subdivision back in the day. And so that's where he went to high school, and he is suffering, obviously, from Trump derangement syndrome. He became very popular for being anti-Trump. I wonder if there's a shot for that. Is there a vaccine for the Trump derangement syndrome? We'll have to see. His Twitter bio says, I voted for the email lady. So a full admission of guilt that Hillary had deleted her emails, but whatever. That's our Twitter troll. He's got a rich history of progressivism. He went to Parsons School of Design, which was started by a small group of progressives in search for a more free and more dramatic and a more individual expression of art. I don't know, maybe he could have, instead of tweeting that, maybe he could have given us some sort of expressive dance or something like that. And so last week on our podcast, we covered 2 points. We covered it's a time to raise our voices and it's a time to get active. And I hope that was a help and a blessing to you. And today on the content that we're going to cover is really about fear. We have to talk about fear. Everybody has some element of fear, okay? We're going to start with a quote from Thomas Jefferson. When government fears the people, there is liberty. When the people fear the government, there is tyranny. and that's Thomas Jefferson. And so obviously, I believe on a political standpoint that is true. As a Christian, as a pastor, a biblical worldview is part of what shapes my mind, my policy, the things that I believe are important for me and my family, and I believe things that really do transcend into government. And there's a Bible verse that says, God hath not given us the spirit of fear. There's another Bible verse that says, fear God and his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. And so fear itself is not bad. We should fear the Creator, and any other sort of fear is not healthy. The fear that a lot of people are having right now in our culture, that's not the kind of fear my biblical worldview tells me to have. I should be afraid of God. He is the creator of the universe. He's in control of everything, and not afraid like I'm afraid to come out of my house, but a respect. My dad, growing up, I was an active kid, and the only thing that kept me in line really was fear of my dad finding out some of the stupid things I was doing. And so fear is a good, healthy check valve to make sure things stay in order. But Phil Murphy is the one who's controlling the fear. Our government is the one that's controlling the fear for the last 19 months. Phil Murphy has been pushing this COVID fear. It seems like a decade ago, but it wasn't that long ago that Phil Murphy would do a press conference every single day for hours talking about the things that are impacting our state with deaths and hospitalizations and all of these crazy things. Come to find out, hardly any of that was true. Nobody died of the flu last year. I think it was about 2,000 people, which is down about 90-something%, and yet we have all these COVID deaths. But that's what Murphy was pushing. If you walk outside of your house, you're going to fall down and drop dead of COVID. That's why we were locked down. And something that still aggravates me to today is the idea of separated together, right? That was the dumbest thing I had ever heard. But they had pushed this fear of COVID, that if you get this thing, you are guaranteed going to die. They pushed the fear of the virus, which here we are 19 months later, it's just not that scary, okay? Coronavirus has been around for a really long time. COVID-19, that is a narrative that pushed fear on the people. Why? Well, don't forget Thomas Jefferson's quote, when the people fear the government, there is tyranny. And so Phil Murphy didn't try and make us afraid of him, not at first, but he did push fear into the New Jersey culture with this virus push. And then he tried to turn it. He tried to spin it. Once he gripped the state of New Jersey with fear over a virus, he turned that fear to himself. Lockdown or suffer the consequences, right, knucklehead? We're not going to tolerate it. We are going to set up, if you remember the language, that we are going to have an army of contact tracers. That was spinning. That was a deliberate spin of the fear, not only from the virus that had us shelter in place, but then locked us down. And don't go out. Don't see anybody, because the army of contact tracers is going to come and get you. They had citizens calling the police on each other. If you see a gathering, call the police. Where I live in Harding, I have a great relationship with our Harding Police Department. I know the chief there, the lieutenant there, and many of the officers that are in town. I grew up in Harding, moved out for a while to start my family, and now I'm back about 6 years. And so I have a good relationship with the police. And I remember seeing the post, even from the Harding Police, that said, if you see a gathering, call us right away. Well, I didn't call them. I went to the police station and I said, who's the highest person in charge around here? I got to talk to them. And then somebody came out. I said, are you guys crazy? Like, call the police if you see a gathering? That's not right. That's making people not only afraid of the police, but afraid of their neighbors, afraid to gather together. This is what I am talking about, this push of fear from the authorities. I have since laughed about it with the officer I spoke to that day. He said, "You were really mad that day." I said, "Yeah, I'm still mad. You should have still taken the post down. The post is still up there. You should have taken it down. We don't call the police on each other when we gather." I even challenged him in a very intense kind of way, and basically said, "Should I call you if I see my neighbor that has a Jewish person come over? Sounds familiar." He said, "No, it's not the same thing." I said, "But it is." This fear of COVID, fear of the lockdown. We've got to get control of our fear. As I mentioned, I wasn't doing a Bible study. I don't plan on doing a Bible study, but I mentioned those 2 Bible verses about fear from the scriptures. And so as I read through the executive order that locked down our state, that put COVID fear in our minds and in our hearts, the lockdown that made us afraid of Governor Murphy, I read through that. I read through it 4 times, 5 times. I'm a business owner. I have a real estate business and a construction company, and I'm a pastor of City Baptist Church. And so I needed to make sure I read that thing to make sure I knew what was in it. And I'll tell you, after I read it, I basically put it in the shredder. It didn't matter what was in it because basically it said Walmart is open, the faith community is closed. City Baptist Church is closed, City Liquors is opened. It was never about science. It was never about health. It was never about a virus. It was always about fear. And fear is a controlling agent. And when the government is afraid of the people, there's liberty. But when the people fear the government, there is tyranny. So here we are, 19 months later. Phil Murphy has now successfully got the legislature to give him legislative power that his executive orders have bite. The bite of law, and that is all based on fear. And so our church is not afraid of the virus. Their pastor's not afraid of the virus, and many of our people aren't. I'm not afraid of Phil Murphy either. Phil Murphy's weak. Phil Murphy's a coward. Phil Murphy's a Goldman Sachs exec who's used to walking in to any room with the fattest check, and he could just buy his way through life. He's a privileged little brat, and I'm not afraid of privileged little brats. And through that, and the power that he had at Goldman Sachs, he became a bully. But Phil Murphy's never actually really had to fight for anything, and I'll get to that in a minute. So for me, I'm not afraid of Phil Murphy. I'm not afraid of his executive orders. I'm not afraid of his illegitimate laws either, to be quite honest with you. So we never closed our church because we weren't afraid of the virus, because City Baptist Church was to be closed, City Liquors was to be open. And so I don't buy into fear. I also don't buy into the fear of the mask, and you better put this mask on or you're going to get droplets in your mouth. What if somebody sneezes on you? I'm going to be 45 years old next week. I've never had anybody sneeze on me. That's disgusting. That's a completely different issue. If somebody sneezes on you, other than a mask, there's probably going to be boxing gloves that have to be put on if people go around in public, start sneezing on each other. So we didn't close our church. I've not put a mask on yet. I've traveled on airplanes. I've not put on a mask. The one time I was challenged on an airplane to put on a mask and pinch that metal bar over my nose, I said, I'm out of here. I'm getting off. And I got off and I didn't take the flight. I'm not going to submit to this push and this pressure to be afraid not only of a virus, but of the heavy hand of the law, or those that are going to push this fake COVID narrative on us. Back just a week or two ago, Attorney General Merrick Garland put out this order that the FBI ought to be looking into and mobilize against parents who, quote unquote, threaten school boards. And threaten is a really broad term. I mean, what does threaten mean? It means, hey, if I don't like your policies, I'm going to vote you out. That could be deemed a threat. Obviously, if you tell somebody to do something, or you're going to have to, step into the parking lot, then I think, obviously that's a threat that is not to be tolerated. But what is a threat? It was very gray. And they put that out to put fear into parents, to make them be silent at school board meetings. Otherwise, the FBI was going to be after you. So I immediately tweeted right out after I saw that, hey, I'm a parent. I'm going to speak out against critical race theory. I think it's pure evil. And I did at FBI. I'm not afraid. They are trying to control us with fear. Don't be afraid. Listen, when you're afraid of the government, there's tyranny, and we are watching that here in New Jersey. Listen, tyrants of old, they've had to inflict pain to gain fear. They've actually had to create an uprising or an uproar, and people actually had to physically suffer, and then they flinch, then they cower, then they hide. Communists had to have takeovers by those with a communist mindset. It wasn't just handed to them. I can think maybe in America, something like the Marxist group, BLM, those riots, those would be a good example. Hey, you submit or we're going to destroy your livelihood. You either submit or we're going to burn down your house. But really, that never really took hold. Nobody's really afraid of BLM because they're a joke, okay? They've been exposed for who they really are. It's not about black people. It's about Marxism. And so they were immediately put off to the side, and people saw them for what they really were. It was a narrative that worked for about 3 months. Listen, communists have had to take control by fear, but they had to take it. They were never handed control like that. Phil Murphy has been handed his tyrannical mindset. He's been here on a silver platter. Oh, I'm not essential? Okay, my business will go bankrupt. I can't even process the mindset that would go into something where somebody tells you you're not essential. You go to work every day, you feed your family on the business you've started, but I have deemed you non-essential, and people just complied and said, okay, I guess my company will go bankrupt. We'll either move out of state, or we'll get our house foreclosed on, or I'll just go have to work and be an employee, even though I was once an entrepreneur. We just handed him his tyrannical mindset. Phil Murphy needs to face opposition. He needs to face real opposition. Should Phil Murphy get reelected on November 2nd, you can guarantee Lockdown 2.0 is going to be 10 times worse than Lockdown 1.0. And we need to refuse. We need to refuse to close our businesses, not be afraid of the governor. We need to refuse to mask. We need to refuse to vax if that's in fact what you want. If you want to get it, get it. If you don't, do not be bullied. Do not be pressured. I hope there's young people watching this, high school and college age students. Listen, don't go with the crowd. Don't go with the crowd because you're afraid of being an outcast. Once you're afraid of being an outcast, they own you. They own you. They'll get you to do anything against your will because you're afraid of losing a friend. You're afraid of being the social misfit. Parents, refuse to mask your children. They're pushing masks on toddlers. Anybody who masks a toddler is a child abuser as far as I'm concerned, even if it's a parent. If a parent masks their 2-year-old child, or if anybody in a facility, daycare facility masks a 2-year-old, you ought to go to jail for child abuse. Listen, it is going to be this fall, should Phil Murphy get reelected, it's going to have to be something where we oppose him every step of the way. Every step of the way. And people feed on that energy. Listen, people feed on fear, but people feed on confidence. People feed on real leadership. Listen, Phil Murphy's a beta male. He's terrified to fight. That's why he weaponized the state police and the local police to go do his dirty work during the lockdowns. He's calling in D.C. right now, Obama and Biden and Harris. He's calling them in. Why? He needs them to campaign for him because he's tired of going out on the streets and getting booed alone. They're his little security blanket. He's sucking his thumb. He needs a pacifier. He needs somebody there with him. He needs to bring in Big Daddy Obama, right? Because Phil Murphy is a coward. He lashes out at press conferences. He almost dehydrated and passed out during the first debate. It was ridiculous. He was sucking down water. He was putting on chapstick. He was dangerously dehydrated. Why? Because he was being challenged. His policy was being challenged. His position, the outcome of his decisions was all being challenged. And you began to see him come unraveled. Listen, that's on a debate stage with Jack. And Jack and I have a good personal relationship. We disagree politically, but I'll tell you, if I had to debate Phil Murphy, I think he would have passed out. Because he and I are absolutely so different that every inch and every word that came out of his mouth, I would oppose. And he can't handle that. He's used to being the big bad bully in the room with the big fat check from his company. And so that's how he governs. We need to understand that fear is the thing that is the controlling agent. If we are going to take back control for New Jersey families, the government needs to fear us. If the government is going to instill fear in the citizenry, then we have a tyrant. And it's going to be game over. And so before we sign off, I would just like to give a shout out. My shirt today, it says Patriot across the front. That is from the official Patriot Gear. You can find them at officialpatriotgear.com. This is a great shirt. They just have a new shirt that they just put out, Hero. I'm going to buy that as soon as I sign off here. Ian and Maddie, they're building a great company, great Patriot Gear. Let's support those that are standing strong. And so I am glad to be a voice for New Jerseyans that are sick and tired of tyrants. Listen, fear is the controlling agent. I am Philip Rizzo for the Jersey Rising podcast, making sure the rising voices of New Jerseyans are being heard. And remember, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. God bless you. We'll see you next time.